The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. Today I have Becca Powers with me. Hello, Becca. How are you?
I am doing great. And Rebecca, I love your name.
Well, it's a pretty awesome name, let's face it. Yeah, definitely. Becca, before I talk to you about your rock and roll posters behind you, you've written a book.
I have.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell me about it. Share with the world what it's about and why you wrote it.
So the book I wrote is called Harness Your Inner CEO. And proudly, I'd like to say that it hit Amazon bestseller in personal success and in women in business. But the reason it did is because of the story inside, right? And why I wrote the book. So it stems from my own personal story, running into and facing severe burnout. So I was Fortune 500 sales leader and very passionate one. I'm still a very passionate leader too, but I've changed my ways a little bit. But then I was very much, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs, leaders, etc., are very service based or impact based, or their drive is to make a positive difference. So if any of the listeners identify with that, that's the space I was in. And also, I was a mom of a blended family of 4 kids, 2 mine, 2 his. And so lots of competing priorities just to set the stage. And I overdid it all the way, like overcommitted. And one night after I came home from like my 4th bad day at work, I collapsed to the bathroom floor that evening. And it was my body's way of telling me that I couldn't continue the way that I was going. I couldn't continue to power through each day, pretending like something wasn't a fit or something wasn't right. And I like to say that in my most powerless moment, I finally found surrender. I called out to God, universe, whichever word you want to put on it, and just said, I need some help. I am at my rock bottom. I'm literally on the bathroom floor. I think I'm doing everything right, but something's not working. And because I thought I was doing everything right, I didn't have the answers within myself anymore. I had to go outside myself. And it was in that moment that I say I got my instant miracle. And that was a memory coming straight forward of a former VP of sales telling me at one point, Becca, I'm so proud of you. You are the CEO of your life. Right. So right there, powerless on the bathroom floor, I was like, I need to harness my inner CEO. If I'm the CEO of my life, then why am I crying on the bathroom floor? Yeah. And just that thought empowered me. I felt a rush of energy and I felt myself expand. I don't know how else to say it. And to this day, I say that I rose off the bathroom floor a different woman than the one that went down. And my 2-year transformational journey is really everything that's encompassed in Harness Your Inner CEO, so I can help other people do the same.
Wow. So first of all, great title for a book, Harness Your Inner CEO. And I have to say, Becca Powers, the surname Powers, along with, it's like manna from heaven, isn't it?
Yes. I was like, oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah. Marketing person's dream. Fabulous. So that up until that point where you found yourself on the bathroom floor, and I absolutely know many of our listeners will relate to that bathroom floor moment. Had you had any indications? Had there been any signs that something wasn't quite right?
Tons of signs. The problem was I ignored them all for a very, very long time. I like to say now in reflection, our bodies are our greatest teachers. If I look back 2 years earlier, I started getting a stress kink in my neck where it was when I had really stressful days, I couldn't turn my head to the left. And so that went on and off during this 2-year period. But I ignored the fact that it was stress and said, I think I heard it at the gym, and then still ignored it 2 years later. So that's just an example of one of the signs that had been really prevalent for a long time that I ignored.
And I'm really cute. You said something really interesting. You said up until that point, you felt you were doing everything right. And I'm going to put right in inverted
Yes.
commas. What did you used to think was doing everything right?
I felt like because I was service based and as a leader, I still believe this, but just from a different perspective, that people come before profits. And as a leader, I really embrace that as my like North Star or my leadership mantra. And again, to this day, I still do. The difference is I kind of sacrificed myself for that. Like I bled for my mission and for that. I also bled, and I'm using the word bled because I felt like by the time I hit the floor that I absolutely had nothing
Yeah.
left. And
Yeah.
I had that same approach for my family. Like I no longer had myself in the picture. Everything else got prioritized. And that's why I say, like, I thought I was doing it right. Like, these things are still the most important, like, some of my most important things. I just now know that I'm supposed to be in the equation too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You are. So, what was the process of writing the book like?
Well, that whole process was really cathartic, very healing, and super awesome. So I've been a writer since I was a kid. And,
All right.
journaling, song lyrics, poems. So I'm a writer at the end of the day, but in the pursuit of doing everything right, my own passions got thrown to the side. And it was just really like all work and family. And that's all that existed in my life. And so I say that because as soon as and we'll talk more about the healing journey, but as soon as I kind of redid my own internal formula, I was like, I'm going to sign up for a writer's group. I think I want to share the story. I didn't exactly know how it was going to come out. And then the moment I tapped into the writing process, it was like it just flowed through me. I actually wrote the book in 30 days. It was a really rough draft,
Yeah.
mind you, but I
Yeah.
wrote it very quickly.
Gosh, that's incredible. And did you have lots of people going, "Oh, yes, it's really hard to write a book. It's really hard to get it published. It's really hard to get it sold." And did you ignore all those people? You clearly did ignore all those people.
Yes, and I sometimes I listened and then I would feel myself go small again and be like, that's not my voice. And that's part of like even going back to harnessing your inner CEO for the listeners. There's a truth in you that you know,
Yeah.
and advice and mentorship is part of our journey to up level. However, it's just advice and mentorship. At the end of the day, you get to internalize what's true for you. And so I had a bumpy journey of kind of following advice and then coming back to my own. But yeah, like you said, ultimately I overcame like the fear and other people's opinions and just did it.
Good. Good. I'm so glad you did. Now, for those people who are having a bathroom floor moment, and I'm just going to use that, Becca, from now on in, if that's okay.
Yeah,
For
no, I use it all the time. And people immediately like identify. They're like, I've been there.
yeah, what will they get from reading your book?
I would say a reconnection to their personal power, their passions, and at the end, the outcome is success and prosperity. So I'm just going to rewind to the right. I was chasing my success and my career and my finances and everything for the sakes of my family, our future. What I didn't realize is that prosperity and success are actually the outcome of you standing in your personal power and being connected to your passions. And when you create and work from that space, for me personally, my prosperity and success went like up leveled more than I could have even imagined.
Yeah, 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 it's true. Now, personal power. This is something I keep hearing. particularly from women, female coaches and people like that. And I'm like, well, what is that? What's your definition of personal power, and how do you step into it?
Yes. So I love that question so much because that's like my jam. But, personal power, we all have this inner, I'm just calling it like an inner knowing of who we really are and what we really like. And we become disconnected from it. And I feel that the moment we start saying more yeses to things that don't matter to us, when we start doing things that we don't want to do, and it's not that we never do things we don't want to do, but at some point, and I find this in very powerful women who are on like I said, like impact based, like I'm going to go change the world. At some point, they end up sacrificing themselves in honor of their work and all the things that they're trying to do. And all those things have their power,
Yeah.
not themselves. And so it's really a process of bringing, like I use the word harness a lot, but harnessing all that back in and then putting out from that place of having your collected energy. So that's my
Yeah.
best way to explain it.
I like that. And I would, yeah, I would probably use heart instead
Yes.
of the phrase personal power, because when it comes from the heart and soul of you,
Yes.
then it flows. It's easier. Yeah, you still have to do stuff you don't like doing. I have to fill out forms and
I would
tick
do
boxes and
laundry.
things. Yeah. Oh, but you do. But essentially, if you're 80% in flow, then
Yes.
it just, like you say, it just comes. So on a really practical level, did you then give up that high powered job, and what happened to
Did. I
recover?
did. So my recovery process started, and I didn't know what I was doing was boundaries, but that's like the first thing that happened the next day. And so I'll just share a quick story, but it's like when you do something, the repetitive pattern, when you do it over and over again, then it becomes a way of being. And that's what happened for me. I went into work the next day. Again, I'm a senior sales leader, and I got asked to take on another project. At that point, the prior me said yes to taking on more responsibility all the time. And I felt myself go into the yes. And then in my head, I'm like, I was just on the bathroom floor last night. I I have to say no. And my
Yeah,
heart started like racing because I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth to take on another project. I've never said no to my leadership team before. And so I have this whole internal experience happening and my mind's racing, my heart's beating. And then I think there is other people in the organization that are trying to raise their hand to do something. And I thought of a good match who could take on this project, more junior, but looking to prove herself. And I said, I was just honest and I was like, my plate's really full right now. I want to say yes, but I can't. But I would recommend trying, exploring this person.
yeah,
Long and short, they didn't even care. They're like, okay, cool. Yeah. And I was like, I had this whole built up experience inside me. And that was one of the moments where I realized that these are just stories and things that I have in my head. And that for me to thrive, I had to put my health back in order. By the one thing I haven't shared with you in the audience is by the time I hit the bathroom floor, I did mention that I ignored signs and symptoms of my body not being okay, but I had stayed in that state for 2 years and I had formed autoimmune disease. My hair was falling out in clumps. I formed two anxiety disorders. My husband and I were on the verge of divorce. I had disconnected relationships with my kids. Like everything was impacted.
oh my
And
goodness.
so it was this, I had to reclaim my life. I just had to. Otherwise, I was going to lose everything,
Yeah,
including myself. So, but going back on to what did I do? I just started doing things like that. And then I started including myself in the equation. And what I realized about boundaries, and this is a really good practical tip for the listeners, is that we have the power of choice. Our choices either empower us or they either empower us or they disempower us. They either help us or they hurt us. And when I really embodied that, it allowed me to make the choices from that place. And so the biggest boundary you can ever set is the one with yourself. And for me, that boundary is if saying yes to something else makes me say no to me, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be a no, but it does mean that I am consciously aware that this is going to be an energy zap if I say yes.
Yeah.
And then I have to replenish myself somehow, some way. And now I know I'm a coach now and all these things. I've studied the shadow. And so now I understand all the underneath this, what that this is how it happens. This is what boundaries do. But then I was just doing it out of necessity. But it was practices like that ultimately changed my trajectory.
Yeah, and it has to. You get to that point where something has to shift, doesn't it? Quite
Yes.
drastically if you get all the way to the bathroom floor point, definitely. Now, you said something there, Becca, and I don't know whether I heard it correctly. Shadow work, did you say?
Yeah, I got
What
certified in shadow beliefs and shadow work.
what's that?
And
I've never heard of that.
yeah, it's basically just getting underneath the covers a little bit more to why we do the things that we do on a subconscious level. And so for an example, if I'm just going to be completely transparent here, I struggled with my self-worth underneath it all. So this act of overcommitting was really because and overextending myself, even though I felt like I was being a hero, what was really happening is I wanted to prove my worth. I wanted to, if I didn't do all of those extra things, I felt undervalued and underappreciated. And so doing all this extra stuff made me feel good. And then I would get the external accolades. But in shadow work, just to explain, when we feel undered, like a potential of being undervalued, underrecognized, underappreciated, or maybe we already are, it is triggering those deeper wounds like I'm not enough,
Ah,
I'm not worthy, stuff, I'm not lovable, whatever. We all have our own individual one or two that are our primaries. But when we're in a situation where we're beginning to feel undered, then we which is it's the overcompensation that happens. And so for me,
right.
it looks like overcommitment, overextension, overworking, and those were the elements that actually brought me to the floor.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense now. I understand it. So, how do you now build in those boundaries? Because again, we have a lot of coaches and consultants who listen to this, and I absolutely know for a fact some of them are just still giving, 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 giving at their own expense. How do you ensure that never happens again, Becca?
Very conscious choices.
Right. Okay.
But I will share like real world what life looks like. So I am doing all these things and still managing a full-time career, which a lot of people
Okay.
don't know about, but I'm totally like I'm in love with my career. I'll probably, depending on how things work, because this part of my life is really taking off. But I'm in software sales. I love what I do. And and I still have all these other things, the family and everything. So boundaries are probably one of the most important things that I do. But I want to say that I'm in my passion. And I think that's really, before I answer the question fully for the listeners, I think it's really important to understand, like, are you doing the right role? Are you in the right business? Are you doing something? You mentioned heart, like, is your soul set on fire? Like that's personal power, right? Like my soul's set on fire. I couldn't stop doing this work if I wanted to. Like I wake up at 5:30 in the morning every day to work. And it's not because I have to, it's because I want to. I'm very driven and I feel it's meaningful and purposeful. And so I spend most of my mornings working on this type of business, right? Like speaking, podcasting. And then my company has embraced the fact that I'm a thought leader. So and I'm not hiding, right? I'm all of me. I have one life, and that's really what I like to push into. But I do try to honor my work boundaries. Like, for an example, I don't do a whole lot of things Tuesday through Thursday so that I can stay super focused. And then, I also end my days at 5:30 regardless. I'll make a few exceptions here and there, but I know my go is in the morning, and I know my restoration is in the evening. And so at 5:30, I'm not trying to push myself to get one more thing done like I used to. I just
Yeah.
allow it to be. And I just want to add one more thing before I pass it back to you. You mentioned kind of like flow and allowance earlier. It's like when you get into that state, and I said like earlier too, that once you start using your boundaries and your choices consciously, your body just starts to know. Like, it just starts to flow. And so more opportunities come in. I can't, it's so magical, honestly, Rebecca. I can't, this is why I love sharing it. It's like when you get the formula, like your personal formula, right? It's just like, life becomes really magical. So, but that's kind of what I have to do on a daily basis, is constantly check in with myself and, are the things that I'm doing creating joy, passion, energy, or am I depleting? And, I'm not perfect at it, but, I probably have a 80% success rate these days.
You do notice, you really do, and I've no idea how old you are, Becca. You seem significantly younger than me, but I'm sort of menopausal, and my energy has shifted so much from being super on it in the mornings, and it now takes me several hours to get warmed up, actually, to
Yes,
get going, which is completely the opposite way around to the way I used to be. So instead of fighting that, I've kind of built in now a 2 to 3 hour warm up to the day so that
I
I'm
love that.
fully awake by the time I actually do some work. And my best work now is in the afternoons, and it never used to be. It's bizarre the way things change and your body changes. Um, but it's only
I
by listening to your
Yeah,
body.
I was just going to reinforce that. I really love that you shared that, because we are all wired differently and we evolve and grow. And if you're not giving yourself space to evolve and grow, then you start getting back into those lower vibrational energies of feeling stuck or something's not a fit. And then you increase your exhaustion, actually. So I love that you shared that you were listening and you adjusted around that. That's really powerful.
Yeah, there's a telltale sign for me now. And that is, we talked about the stuff that you don't really like doing, the admin stuff of running a business. And I'm sure in your job, there's like little elements that you're not keen on. I know I need a few days away, completely away from everything, when those little things really, really irritate me, and when I just keep putting them off. And that's an indication for me to go, right, okay, you need a break now. You need
Yes.
a break. Just step away.
It's true. And the thing is like, and with the A types and, high achievers, there's an element, and it's one of our strengths, like we can push through. But actuality is, like you're saying, when you find yourself hitting that threshold, instead of pushing through or powering through, if you remove yourself,
Yeah.
clarity
Yeah.
comes, magic comes, miracles come. I say keep magic and miracles, but I don't know any other way to explain it. Because when I get like that too, I'll walk away for 3 days. I'll be like, oh, nothing's gonna break. I might. So like, let's just take a pause. And then I come back to everything, and there's like maybe a new keynote or something like that I was pushing for. But when I released and paused, they just flowed in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I want to talk about your musical tastes,
Let's do it.
because you have a Pink Floyd poster,
I
Wish You Were
do.
Here, classic album. You have a Led Zepp poster, again, classic. And then the other one is Stevie Nicks, I
Yes,
believe,
it
is it?
is. Yes, it
Just
is.
awesome. Three of the best.
I know. They make me happy.
Make me happy too. And on a quite serious note, what is it outside of your work that feeds your soul?
I'm a huge music and concert junkie.
Right, right.
I had a very unique childhood. My parents were musicians,
Wow.
and my dad played lead guitar. Like he played Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, like almost perfectly. He could sing. And then my mom played keyboard and pianos and was very much a Stevie Nicks ish type of soul,
Right.
heart, things like that. And so I just grew up around it. And there's music to me makes me feel alive. You can see how I'm smiling just talking
Yeah.
about it. And so, they have just come with me through my lifetime.
That's awesome. I love that so much. The personality, I think I'm really what delights me now about the modern world of business is that you're allowed to show your personality. You're allowed to share who you are really. And I don't know about you, but I that changed during COVID and lockdowns. There was
It did.
definitely a before that and an after that, wasn't there?
There sure
And
was.
what elements are there of you that you're happy to share with the world that perhaps, pre 2020, you probably would have been a bit shy about sharing?
So, one of the facts is that I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher. And I am very open about that. But because I am so businessy, there was a time where I kind of just kept that in the wraps. And if you were in my internal world, just like, I love music, you would know that I love yoga, crystals, chakras, and all of that. And I probably have, I don't even know, I have so many certifications in the healing arts just because I'm absolutely obsessed. So, but now I, it's so different now because not only am I open about talking them, I actually incorporate Kundalini into my work. And it's really cool to be in like a corporate keynote or a corporate workshop and having people do breath work and mantra and then they're like, oh wow, like I feel really good. So in one way, yes, there's a freedom now to express yourself, but I also think that there is that wall is coming down, so now people are actually able to heal because they're a
Yeah.
little more open than before.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I mean, yeah, years and years ago, when I first started studying and practicing NLP, it wasn't something I talked about a huge amount. Now nobody cares, which is great and it's fantastic. And yeah, in a business meeting, to have people breathe differently. And I use a peripheral vision technique so everybody relaxes. And people are much more open and engaged with that, which is just fantastic.
It is. It gives me the goosebumps as you say it because it's just so powerful when you see it in that
Yeah,
type of business setting.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Where are you heading? Where are you taking all of this, Becca?
Wherever the universe takes me. No, definitely have some goals, but I'm also completely open to what unfolds. One of the things that I'm looking to do next is I just released a second, call it a book, but it's a workbook. It's the workplace burnout workbook. So I got that baby out of my head and self-published that. Now my next book that I'm working on is Lean Into Your Power. And I am searching a traditional contract for that. Things are
Great,
looking good.
good.
If things go right, that will probably go bestseller, like traditional bestseller, not just Amazon. And if everything goes according to plan, I mean that'll like catapult the keynoting and the workshops and all of that. So that's my passion work. So I'm really kind of just putting good juju all over that, like because that's what I would
Yeah.
love to do on a much bigger scale than I'm doing now.
Yeah, I think the world's ready for that, definitely. I really do. And I think that spreading that kind of love is good work.
Yeah.
And yeah, good for you, good for everybody around
Thank
you.
you.
I think that's fantastic, definitely. Okay, so here's a question. If you're let's talk about your coaching and keynote business. If that had a
Yes.
personality or a character, how would you describe it?
I they're like I have a podcast too. And by the way, I'd
Okay.
love to have you on it. But I
Oh,
have
I'd love
I'm
to.
such a like a rock and roll chick. So I'm always and I can I curse?
Yes, of course you can.
Okay,
Yes, I'm
okay.
from Manchester and we swear a lot in Manchester.
Okay, good, good, good. So I'll be in good company. So it's like I say my personality is like fuck yeah energy. Like I'm always like ah! Like that's my brand. And yeah, so I don't know that it necessarily I have like a emoji or anything for it, but it's very much like on the extra side.
Oh, I love that. Now, you're a lady with tattoos, I
Yes.
think. Yes,
Yes.
you are. So
Yes.
I was super brave, and when I turned 51, just after my 51st first birthday, I got my first ever tattoo. My friends will call it my menopause tattoo, which I just think is
That's
hilarious.
hilarious.
And they'd be right, I wasn't having a midlife crisis. What I was having was a second youth. So still am. It's great. And when you get up there and do keynotes, and again, disagree with me if you want to, but I feel that the world is much more open and much more accepting, particularly of women who look different, and kind of putting different in inverted brackets. 5 years ago, a woman I don't think would have dreamt of doing a keynote with tattoos on display, but now it's fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Being a 20-year corporate veteran at this point, I have most of my tattoos have always been on my back, so it's easy for me to hide. But then I started bringing them out onto my shoulder blades, and I live in South Florida, so I'm wearing a lot of like dressy, blousy tank tops, but they're still tank tops. So then they started poking out this way, and then they started coming down this way, and I keynote in not tank tops, but in
Yeah.
dress blouses and stuff like that. And I show my tattoos, and I've never had anyone even remotely look at me sideways.
I
5
love
years ago, maybe, but not
Yeah.
anymore. And then, like I said, like I have that big, like rock and roll type of energy. Like when people come and they take pictures with me, we normally end up doing something expressive rather than just a smiley, like, hi.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's great. And, women have always been like that, but we've just hidden it. It's been easier for men, and not in the corporate world. There are plenty of men that have had to hide who they are in the corporate world, and I'm hoping it's easier for them now too,
Sure.
definitely. But I'm not a man, so I can't tell what their experience is. I can only speak from my own experience, and it just feels better. And I hope that continues, and I hope that openness continues. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what's your next book called? Tell me again.
Lean into your power.
Lean into your power. I'm really looking forward to that. Your Harness Your Inner CEO is on my reading list now. Thank you. And I hope it's on all our listeners' reading list. Last top tip, Becca. If somebody is just picking themselves off the bathroom floor and they want to harness their inner CEO, what are you going to say to them?
You're worth it. I would shout it from the rooftops if I could. Like, you are worth prioritizing yourself. You are worth having energy. You are worth having space. You are worth having time. You are worth having money, love, all of it. And just don't give up on yourself. Pick yourself up. You got this. Like, you are the CEO of your life. So go do big things.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best.
Yes. Thank you for having me on.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass, where we make it happen. grab your seat, let's have